You'd think having a wife who loved my sensitivity would make me the luckiest man alive, but it turned out to be the reason she humiliated me. My name is Ethan Cole, and for 6 years I believed I'd found my soulmate in Rachel, a woman who swore she adored the fact that I wore my heart on my sleeve in a world that told men to stay stone-faced. God, I couldn't have been more wrong. It started so innocently. Rachel would come home from her marketing job at this Austin tech startup, venting about her coworkers, especially this woman named Vanessa Price. "She's so cruel, Ethan," Rachel would say, curling up next to me on our couch. "The way she treats people like toys. I could never be like that." I'd hold her close, grateful that my wife had such a kind heart. What a joke that turned out to be. See, I'm a software engineer. I make good money, $90K a year, and I'm good at what I do. But I've always been the sensitive type. I cry at movies, I get emotional when I'm stressed, and yeah, I have some anxiety issues. Rachel used to say she loved that about me. "You're not like other guys, Ethan. You actually feel things." The way she said it made me feel special, like my emotional nature was a gift rather than a weakness. But over the past 6 months, something changed. It was subtle at first, little comments that stung but seemed innocent enough. "Oh, Ethan, you're being dramatic again." She'd laugh when I got upset about work stress. Or, "Maybe you should toughen up a bit," when I expressed concern about our relationship feeling distant. I started second-guessing myself, wondering if I really was too emotional, too weak. The nights became colder. Rachel would come home later, and later always with stories about team drinks and networking events. When I'd expressed that I missed spending time together, she'd roll her eyes. "God, Ethan, you're so needy. Can't you just be happy that I'm advancing my career?" The words cut deep because they hit my biggest insecurity, that my emotional nature made me clingy, pathetic. I remember one particularly bad night about 3 months ago. I'd had a panic attack at work. Nothing major, just the usual anxiety spiral about a project deadline. And I came home seeking comfort from my wife. Instead, I found Rachel on a video call with her coworkers, laughing loudly. When she saw my tear-stained face, something flickered across her expression. Not concern or love, but calculation. "Everything okay, babe?" she asked. But there was this strange gleam in her eyes, like she was studying me rather than caring for me. I explained about the panic attack, and she made all the right sounds of sympathy, but I could see her mind working behind those pretty brown eyes. That night, she was unusually affectionate, almost like she was rewarding me for being vulnerable. The pattern continued. Every time I showed emotion, sadness, anxiety, stress, Rachel would get this look, like she was taking notes. She started pushing my buttons more deliberately, bringing up topics she knew triggered my anxiety, then comforting me afterward with an intensity that felt almost hungry. I thought she was just going through something, maybe stress from her job. Work became my refuge. At least there, my sensitivity was seen as an asset. I could anticipate user needs, write empathetic code, connect with clients on a human level. But even that sanctuary was poisoned when Rachel started making comments about my soft career. "It's cute how you help people with their computer problems, honey," she'd say with this condescending smile. "Very nurturing of you." The breaking point should have been our 5th anniversary dinner 2 months ago. I'd planned something special at this romantic restaurant downtown, the same place where I'd proposed. I was already emotional because I'd been thinking about how much our relationship had changed, and when Rachel showed up 30 minutes late without apology, I couldn't hide my hurt. "Seriously, Ethan," she said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "You're going to cry because I'm a little late. This is exactly why." She stopped herself, but the damage was done. I was mortified, trying to wipe my eyes discreetly while other diners stared. Rachel just sat there with this satisfied expression, like she'd accomplished something. That night, I started wondering if I was losing my mind. The woman I married would never deliberately humiliate me in public, but the evidence was mounting that this new Rachel not only enjoyed my pain, but seemed to be actively cultivating it. 3 weeks ago, I overheard her on the phone with someone from work. No, no, he's perfect for it, she was saying in a hushed, excited voice. Trust me, I know exactly which buttons to push. When I asked who she was talking to, she claimed it was about a client presentation. But something in her tone made my stomach turn. The final red flag came last week. I found a notebook in her car. Fell out when I was cleaning it for her as a surprise. Just a glimpse of one page. But I saw my name written multiple times alongside words like triggers, public, and what looked like dates. When I tried to look closer, she snatched it away, laughing nervously. Just work notes, babe. You know how boring marketing stuff is. But I'm not stupid, despite what Rachel apparently thinks. I'm a software engineer. I notice patterns, I see systems, and I was starting to recognize that my wife had been running some kind of program on me. The question was, what was the desired output? I didn't have to wait long to find out. Because yesterday, everything changed when I discovered the truth about the bet that would destroy not just my marriage, but my entire understanding of the woman I thought I loved. And that's when my real story began. Not as the weak, emotional husband Rachel thought she could manipulate, but as a man who was about to show her just how dangerous it is to underestimate someone's capacity for calculated revenge. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest, and it came from the most unexpected source, Rachel's own arrogance. She thought I was at my weekly therapy session, another thing she'd started mocking lately, calling it Ethan's crying hour. But Dr. Martinez had to reschedule last minute. I came home early to surprise my wife, maybe cook her favorite dinner, still clinging to the hope that we could fix whatever was broken between us. Instead, I walked into a conversation that would shatter every remaining illusion I had about my marriage. Rachel was in our home office, door closed, but her voice carried through the thin walls. She was on speakerphone, and I could hear multiple voices, her co-workers having what sounded like a celebratory conference call. I was about to knock when I heard Vanessa Price's distinctive laugh, followed by words that made my blood turn to ice. I have to admit, Rachel, when I first proposed the bet, I didn't think you had it in you, Vanessa was saying. But watching you systematically break down that poor man over the past 6 months, it's been absolutely masterful. My hand froze on the doorknob. Bet at 6 months. My mind raced back to when Rachel's behavior had started changing and the timeline matched perfectly. Please, Rachel replied, and her voice, God, her voice was nothing like the woman I thought I married. It was cold, calculating, almost gleeful. Ethan's always been easy to manipulate. The man cries at insurance commercials. This has been like taking candy from a baby. Another voice chimed in, Marcus, I think, from Rachel's team. So remind us of the terms again. I want to make sure I know exactly how much money I'm about to lose to you. Simple, Rachel said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. The bet was whether I could make Ethan cry in a public restaurant within 30 days. We each put in $1,000, $5,000 total. If I succeed, I take it all. If I fail, I pay each of you $1,000. And you're confident about tomorrow night? This from another co-worker, Sarah, I thought. Are you kidding me? Rachel laughed, and the sound made me nauseous. I've been conditioning him for months. I know exactly what buttons to push, exactly how to trigger his anxiety in public. Tomorrow's our anniversary dinner. He'll already be emotional about our relationship. I just need to push him over the edge. Vanessa's voice cut through my horror. What's your strategy? Oh, I've got it all planned out, Rachel said, and I could hear papers shuffling. First, I'll show up late. That always makes him anxious. Then I'll bring up his therapy sessions loudly. Maybe mention how embarrassing it is to have a husband who needs professional help managing his emotions. If that doesn't work, I'll go nuclear and tell him I've been thinking about divorce. Trust me, he'll be sobbing into his pasta within 20 minutes. The casual cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. This was the woman I'd been vulnerable with, shared my deepest fears and insecurities. and she'd been cataloging every weakness, every trigger planning to weaponize them for the entertainment of her coworkers. "You're absolutely diabolical," someone said with admiration. "The man has no idea what's coming." "That's what makes it so beautiful," Rachel replied. "He still thinks I love him. He still believes we're going through a rough patch that therapy can fix. He has no clue that I've been systematically destroying his self-esteem as part of a bet. The poor thing probably thinks tomorrow night is going to be some romantic reconciliation dinner." My legs nearly gave out. Tomorrow night, she was talking about our anniversary dinner that I'd been so excited about. I'd made reservations at Chez Laurent, the same upscale French restaurant where we'd had our first date. I'd even bought her a necklace, something I'd been saving up for months to surprise her with. "What if he doesn't break?" Marcus asked. "What if he's stronger than you think?" Rachel's laugh was like broken glass. "Marcus, you haven't seen what I've seen. This man had a panic attack last month because I criticized how he loaded the dishwasher. I've been pushing his boundaries for months, questioning his masculinity, mocking his sensitivity, making him doubt himself. He's already hanging by a thread. Tomorrow night, I'm just going to cut it." "And after you win?" Vanessa asked. "What happens to poor Ethan then?" There was a pause, and when Rachel spoke again, her voice was even colder. "Honestly, I'm thinking divorce. I'm tired of being married to someone so weak. This bet has made me realize how much I resent his constant need for emotional validation. I want someone stronger, someone who doesn't cry when life gets difficult." "Someone like Gregory Shaw?" Sarah asked with a knowing tone. My blood ran cold. Gregory Shaw, her boss, the VP of marketing, the man she'd been staying late to work with. "Maybe," Rachel said coyly. "He's everything Ethan isn't. Powerful, confident, emotionally stable. A real man." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The late nights, the sudden interest in her appearance, the way she'd been increasingly critical of everything about me. She hadn't just been emotionally torturing me for a bet. She'd been preparing to leave me for her boss. "Well, tomorrow should be quite the show," Vanessa said. "I almost feel bad for him." "Almost." "Don't," Rachel replied firmly. "Ethan brought this on himself by being so pathetically sensitive. Maybe this will teach him to toughen up for his next relationship. I'm actually doing him a favor." I backed away from the door on shaking legs, my mind reeling. 6 months. 6 months of systematic psychological torture, all for $5,000 and the entertainment of her toxic coworkers. Every moment of intimacy, every time she'd comforted me after pushing me to my breaking point, every "I love you" had been a lie. But as I stood in my own hallway feeling like a stranger in my own home, something unexpected happened. The overwhelming hurt and betrayal began to crystallize into something else, something colder, something more calculating. Rachel thought she knew me. She thought I was weak, predictable, easy to manipulate. She thought tomorrow night would be her moment of triumph, the grand finale, where she humiliated me in front of a restaurant full of strangers for the amusement of her cruel colleagues. She was about to learn that there's a difference between being sensitive and being weak, and that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear the most. I had less than 24 hours to turn the tables on my wife and her accomplices. And I was going to make sure that when the dust settled, Rachel Cole would understand exactly what it felt like to be the one crying in public. The next 18 hours were the longest of my life, but also the most clarifying. I'd always thought my sensitivity was a weakness, something that made me vulnerable and easy to hurt. But sitting in my home office that night, staring at the ceiling while Rachel slept peacefully beside me, probably dreaming about her $5,000 payday, I realized that my emotional intelligence wasn't a bug in my system. It was a feature. See, being sensitive means you notice things. You pick up on subtle changes in behavior, tone, body language. You understand what motivates people, what they fear, what they value most. And after 6 years of marriage to Rachel Cole, I knew exactly where all her buttons were hidden. I spent the night researching, planning, preparing. My software engineering background kicked in. This was just another system to analyze another problem to solve. Rachel had been running a program designed to break me down, but every program has vulnerabilities. I just needed to find the right exploit. The irony wasn't lost on me that while Rachel thought she was preparing for her moment of triumph, I was preparing for hers, just not the kind she expected. I woke up that morning and played my part perfectly. The anxious, hopeful husband excited about our anniversary dinner. "I'm really looking forward to tonight, babe." I told Rachel over coffee, making sure my voice carried that slightly needy undertone she'd been training me to use. "I feel like we haven't really connected in months." Rachel barely looked up from her phone, probably coordinating with her accomplices. Should be memorable," she said with a little smile that made my skin crawl. If only she knew how memorable it was actually going to be. At work, I made a few strategic phone calls. My friend Jake works in cybersecurity and owed me a favor from when I'd helped him debug some code last year. "I need you to help me with something," I told him. "It involves recording a conversation in a public place. Completely legal, single-party consent state and all that, but I need it to be crystal clear audio." The second call was to my lawyer, David Kim. We'd used him when we bought the house, and he specialized in family law. David, hypothetically speaking, if someone were systematically emotionally abusing their spouse as part of a workplace bet, what kind of legal implications might that have? His intake of breath was sharp. "Ethan, is everything okay? Just gathering information for now," I said carefully. "But I might need to move quickly on some things, very soon." The rest of the day crawled by. Rachel came home around 5, already dressed to kill in a black dress I'd bought her for her birthday last year. The irony was perfect. She was wearing my gift while preparing to destroy me. "You look beautiful," I said, meaning it despite everything. Whatever else Rachel was, she was stunning. It just turned out that beauty really could hide a rotten core. "Thanks," she said distractedly, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Ready to go? I made us reservations for 7:30. I nodded, slipping the tiny recording device Jake had given me into my jacket pocket. Can't wait. The drive to Chez Laurent was surreal. Rachel was practically vibrating with nervous energy, checking her phone constantly, probably getting last-minute coaching from Vanessa and the others. I meanwhile felt strangely calm, like the eye of a hurricane. We arrived at the restaurant, the same place where we'd had our first date 6 years ago, where I'd been so nervous I'd spilled wine on my shirt, where Rachel had laughed and told me it was endearing. God, had any of it been real, the hostess seated us at a corner table with a view of the entire dining room. Perfect. Rachel had probably requested it specifically, maximum audience for my humiliation. She kept glancing around, noting the other diners, calculating her approach. This place brings back memories, I said softly, reaching across to take her hand. She let me, but I could feel the tension in her fingers, the way she was already preparing to pull away dramatically when the moment came. It does, she agreed, but her mind was clearly elsewhere. She kept checking her phone, probably getting updates from her cheering section. The waiter took our drink orders, wine for both of us. Rachel downed her glass quickly, liquid courage for what she was about to do. I nursed mine, needing to stay sharp for what was coming. And then, right on schedule, according to the plan I'd overheard it, began. "Ethan." Rachel said, her voice suddenly taking on that cold, clinical tone I'd heard on the phone call. "We need to talk about some things. Here we go." I made sure the recording device was positioned correctly, then looked at her with the trusting, vulnerable expression she was expecting. "Of course, babe. What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking a lot about us lately." She continued, her voice getting louder, making sure nearby tables could hear. "About our relationship, about where we're going. I could see other diners starting to notice the tension at our table. Rachel was setting the stage perfectly, just like she'd planned. The only problem was she had no idea I knew the script. "I'm concerned about your emotional stability," she said, and I could see her settling into her performance. "The constant therapy sessions, the way you cry over every little thing. It's honestly becoming embarrassing." Right on cue, I felt my eyes start to well up. But not for the reasons Rachel thought. I was thinking about the woman I'd fallen in love with, the person I'd thought she was, and genuinely grieving that loss. The tears were real, but they weren't defeat. They were preparation. "Rachel, I don't understand," I said, letting my voice crack slightly. "I thought you supported me working on my mental health." "Support you," she laughed, and it was cruel and sharp. "Ethan, I'm tired of being married to someone who needs professional help just to function like an adult. Do you have any idea how humiliating it is to tell people that my husband needs therapy because he can't handle normal life stress?" The words hit exactly as she intended, but instead of breaking me down, they were building me up. Every cruel syllable was being recorded, every moment of calculated cruelty preserved for posterity. She was giving me everything I needed to destroy her. "I've been thinking," Rachel continued, her voice now loud enough that I could see other diners openly staring, "that maybe we should consider divorce." And there it was, the nuclear option she'd bragged about to her coworkers. The kill shot designed to send me into a sobbing breakdown in front of a restaurant full of strangers. I could practically feel her anticipation, her excitement at finally achieving her goal. So I gave her exactly what she wanted. I let the tears flow freely, now let my shoulders shake, let out a small broken sob that carried across the quiet restaurant. I buried my face in my hands, the picture of a man completely shattered by his wife's cruelty. "Please," I whispered loud enough for the recording device but quiet enough to seem like I was trying to maintain dignity. "Please, don't do this here. Not like this." Rachel's eyes lit up with triumph. She'd done it. She'd broken me in public exactly as promised. $5,000 richer and ready to move on to Gregory Shaw, leaving behind the weak, pathetic husband who couldn't even handle a simple conversation without falling apart. But as I sat there, tears streaming down my face while my wife basked in her victory, I wasn't thinking about my humiliation. I was thinking about tomorrow morning when Rachel would discover that sometimes the person you think you've destroyed is actually the one holding all the cards. The real show was about to begin, and this time I would be the one controlling the narrative. The morning after my public breakdown should have been my rock bottom. Rachel had won her bet, humiliated me in front of a restaurant full of strangers, and was probably already planning her exit strategy from our marriage. She woke up that Saturday with a satisfied smile, stretching like a cat who'd caught the canary. "How are you feeling today, honey?" she asked with fake concern, barely suppressing her glee. "Last night was pretty intense." I played the part of the devastated husband perfectly. "I'm still processing everything," I said quietly, not meeting her eyes. "I never thought you felt that way about me." "Well," she said, already reaching for her phone to probably text Vanessa about her victory, "sometimes honesty is painful, but maybe this is good for us, for you to finally face some hard truths about yourself." What she didn't know was that while she was texting her accomplices, I was putting the final pieces of my own plan into motion. See, Rachel had made a critical error in her calculations. She assumed that because I was sensitive and emotional, I was also passive and helpless. She forgot that I was also a software engineer who understood systems networks and how information flows. While Rachel showered, singing cheerfully like she didn't have a care in the world, I was in my office uploading the crystal-clear audio recording of our dinner to a secure server. Every word of her calculated cruelty, every moment of her systematic emotional abuse preserved in high-definition clarity. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. Package delivered to your email. Clean audio timestamps everything you need. Hope this helps with whatever you're dealing with, man. The second phase involved David, my lawyer, who'd agreed to meet me for an emergency consultation that morning. Rachel thought I was going for a run. Another one of my emotional coping mechanisms she'd learned to mock. Jesus Christ, Ethan, David said after listening to just the first few minutes of the recording. This isn't just marital problems. This is systematic emotional abuse conducted as part of a workplace conspiracy. We're talking about potential criminal charges here. What are my options? I asked. Well, you've got grounds for divorce with cause, obviously. Emotional abuse, infidelity, if you can prove the thing with her boss. But this workplace bet situation, that's harassment, conspiracy, potentially even fraud, depending on how their company policies are written. He paused, studying my face. But something tells me you're not just looking for legal remedies. He was right. Legal action would come later, but first I wanted Rachel and her accomplices to experience exactly what they'd put me through. The humiliation, the betrayal, the crushing realization that the people you trusted most had been playing you for a fool. I need you to draft some documents for me, I said, and I need to know about her company's HR policies regarding workplace harassment and ethics violations. David raised an eyebrow but started taking notes. I like where this is going. The third phase required the most delicate touch. I needed to understand the power dynamics at Rachel's company, particularly around Gregory Shaw, her boss and apparent affair partner. A few strategic LinkedIn searches and some careful social media stalking revealed something interesting. Shaw was married to a prominent Austin socialite named Catherine Shaw, and they were very active in charity circles and local politics. More importantly, Shaw's company bio emphasized their commitment to workplace ethics and zero tolerance for harassment or unprofessional behavior. Perfect. By the time Rachel returned from her post-victory brunch with the girls, probably celebrating her successful manipulation, I had everything in place. She found me in the living room still playing the role of the broken, defeated husband. "Hey, babe," she said, practically bouncing with good mood. "I was thinking maybe we should take a break from each other for a while. You know, give you time to work on yourself, figure out how to be less emotional." "Actually," I said quietly, "I think that's a great idea. In fact, I've already started making some arrangements." Something in my tone must have caught her attention because she looked at me more carefully. "What kind of arrangements?" I pulled out my laptop and turned it toward her. On the screen was an email draft addressed to Gregory Shaw with CCs to the entire marketing department, HR, and the company's executive team. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," I said, watching her face carefully. "About honesty being important. And I realized you're absolutely right. Honesty is crucial." Rachel's face had gone pale. "Ethan, what is this?" "It's an email explaining to your boss and colleagues about the bet," I said calmly. "About how his marketing team has been engaging in systematic workplace harassment, using an employee's spouse as entertainment. I've attached the audio recording from last night, along with some additional evidence I've gathered." The blood drained from her face completely now. "You recorded us? That's illegal." "Actually, it's not. Texas is a single-party consent state, which means I can record any conversation I'm part of. My lawyer confirmed it, along with confirming that what you and your coworkers did constitutes harassment, conspiracy, and potentially criminal fraud." Rachel's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The confident, cruel woman who'd systematically destroyed my self-esteem was nowhere to be found. In her place was someone who looked terrified and very, very small. "You can't send that," she whispered. "It would destroy my career. Gregory would..." "Gregory would what?" I interrupted. "Fire you for participating in workplace harassment, report you to HR for engaging in behavior that could expose the company to massive liability, Or are you worried he'd distance himself from you professionally once he realizes you're the kind of person who tortures her own husband for money? The mention of Gregory made her flinch. She still didn't know I was aware of their affair, but she was starting to understand that I knew far more than she'd given me credit for. By the way, I continued conversationally. I also prepared a separate email for Catherine Shaw, Gregory's wife. Turns out she's very active on social media, lots of posts about marriage and family values. I thought she might be interested to know that her husband has been involved in workplace harassment targeting a married couple and that one of his employees has been bragging about having an affair with him. Rachel collapsed into a chair like I'd physically struck her. When did you? Rachel, I'm a software engineer. Information is what I do. Did you really think you could systematically abuse someone for 6 months without them eventually figuring it out? I closed the laptop. The only question now is what happens next. What do you want? She asked, and for the first time in our marriage, I heard genuine fear in her voice. I want you to understand something. I said, my voice still calm, but carrying steel now. You thought you married a weak man? Someone you could manipulate and control and ultimately discard when you got bored. But you made a mistake, Rachel. You confused kindness with weakness, empathy with vulnerability. I stood up looking down at the woman who'd spent months systematically destroying my confidence for the entertainment of her coworkers. Tomorrow is Monday. You're going to go into work and you're going to face your colleagues and you're going to wonder if I've sent those emails yet. You're going to look at Gregory Shaw and wonder if he knows what kind of person you really are. You're going to sit in meetings with Vanessa and the others and wonder if they're about to be called into HR. Rachel was crying now. Real tears, not the calculated manipulation I'd been subjected to for months. And every day, I continued, you're going to wake up not knowing if today is the day your carefully constructed professional life comes crashing down around you. Just like I've been waking up for months not knowing what new way you'd found to humiliate me. I picked up a manila envelope from the coffee table and handed it to her. Divorce papers, already filed. You can contest it if you want, but I have enough evidence of emotional abuse and infidelity to make things very unpleasant for you. She opened the envelope with shaking hands. Ethan, please, we can work this out. I'll end things with Gregory. I'll quit my job. We can go to counseling. No, I said simply. We can't. Because this wasn't a mistake or a rough patch, Rachel. This was who you really are, and I deserve better than that. I walked toward the door, then paused and looked back at her one last time. Oh, and Rachel, that recording isn't just backed up on my laptop. I've got copies stored in multiple locations with instructions to release them if anything happens to me. So don't get any ideas about trying to intimidate or threaten me. You're not the only one who can play games. As I left my own house, the house I'd be keeping according to the divorce papers, I could hear Rachel sobbing behind me. But unlike the tears I'd shed at her manipulation, these were the tears of someone who'd finally been forced to face the consequences of their own cruelty. The war wasn't over yet. There was still one more move to make, one final lesson to teach about the price of treating someone's heart like a game. And Monday morning was going to be very educational for everyone involved. Monday morning arrived like Christmas morning for me and like Judgment Day for Rachel. I woke up in my hotel room. Yeah, I'd checked into a nice place downtown, putting it on the credit card Rachel didn't know I'd been building a separate life with, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, genuine happiness. See, the thing about being systematically emotionally abused is that you forget what normal feels like. You start to believe that the constant anxiety, the walking on eggshells, the never knowing when the next cruel comment is coming, you start to think that's just what relationships are. But waking up without that weight on my chest, without dreading what new way my wife would find to hurt me that day, it was like breathing clean air for the first time in years. I had coffee, checked my secure email and smiled. Everything was in place for what I'd started calling Operation Transparency in my head. Because really, that's all I was doing, bringing truth to light. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Please don't do this. I'm begging you. I'll do anything to fix this. Too little too late. I'd given her 6 months to remember that I was a human being worthy of love and respect. She'd chosen to see me as a source of entertainment instead. At exactly 9 a.m., I hit send on the first email. The message to Gregory Shaw was clinical, professional, and devastating. I'd structured it like a bug report, which, in a way, it was. Subject line: critical ethics violation in marketing department requiring immediate attention. I laid out the facts systematically. His employees had engaged in a conspiracy to emotionally abuse a spouse for financial gain and entertainment. I provided timestamps, audio evidence, and a detailed breakdown of how the harassment had escalated over 6 months. I noted that this behavior created significant liability for the company and violated multiple workplace policies. Then I attached the audio file. The second email went to Catherine Shaw. This one was more personal, written from one betrayed spouse to another. I explained that I discovered my wife was having an affair with her husband, and that this affair had developed in the context of a workplace harassment scheme targeting me. I provided evidence and suggested she might want to have some conversations with Gregory about his professional boundaries. The third email was the nuclear option. A message to the entire marketing team with copies to HR, the executive team, and the legal department. Subject line: regarding recent workplace harassment targeting external individuals. This one was pure fire. I detailed exactly what Rachel, Vanessa, and their accomplices had done, provided the audio evidence of their planning and Rachel's systematic emotional abuse, and noted that I was consulting with attorneys about potential legal action against both the individuals involved and the company for creating a hostile work environment that extended beyond their offices. But the real masterpiece was the final paragraph. I'm sharing this information not out of vindictiveness, but because I believe organizations are defined by the character of their people. The employees who participated in this harassment bet may have thought they were engaging in harmless fun, but they were actually demonstrating a fundamental lack of empathy, professional judgment, and ethical boundaries that should concern anyone who works with them. I hit send on all 3 emails simultaneously, then sat back to wait for the fireworks. They didn't take long. My phone started ringing within 30 minutes. Unknown numbers, probably Rachel trying to reach me from different lines. I let them all go to voicemail. Then David, my lawyer, called. "Holy shit, Ethan," he said without preamble. "I just got a call from Shaw's company. Their legal department wants to discuss settlement options immediately. Apparently your emails caused quite a stir." "Define stir," I said, though I was grinning. "Well, according to my contact there, Shaw called an emergency meeting the minute he got your email. Then his wife called him screaming. Then HR started pulling people into meetings. Vanessa Price was reportedly seen crying in the bathroom, and Rachel never showed up to work at all." Perfect. Absolutely perfect. The voicemails were incredible. The first few were Rachel progressing from anger to panic to desperate pleading. "You can't do this to me," became, "Please, I'm sorry, I'll fix everything," which became, "My career is over, Ethan, please." But the real gems came from her accomplices. Vanessa Price, the ringleader who'd initiated the bet, left a message so panicked she was barely coherent. "This is all a misunderstanding. We never meant any real harm. It was just office fun. Please call me back, we can work this out." Marcus from the marketing team was more direct. "Dude, this is fucked up. You recorded private conversations and now you're trying to destroy people's lives over a stupid joke. We could sue you for this." I laughed out loud at that one. Sue me for exposing their harassment. Good luck with that strategy. But the message that made it all worthwhile came from an unexpected source: Gregory Shaw himself. "Mr. Cole," his voice was tight and professional, "I want you to know that I was completely unaware of the inappropriate behavior my team engaged in regarding you and your wife. This kind of conduct is absolutely unacceptable and will be dealt with immediately. I'd like to discuss this situation with you at your earliest convenience along with our legal team to see how we can make this right." Translation: Please don't sue us into oblivion. The afternoon brought even better news. Jake, my cybersecurity friend, sent me a text with a screenshot from Austin's tech community Slack channel. Someone had shared my story, and it was blowing up. The consensus was universal condemnation of Rachel and her team, with lots of people sharing their own experiences with toxic workplace cultures. Then David called again with the best news yet. Shaw's company just fired 4 people, he said. Vanessa Price, Rachel, and 2 others who were involved in the bet, effective immediately for violation of workplace ethics policies and bringing the company into disrepute. I felt a moment of something that might have been sympathy for Rachel, but it passed quickly. She'd made her choices. She'd decided that my pain was worth $5,000 and some workplace laughs. Now she was learning that actions have consequences. There's more, David continued. Shaw's wife has apparently filed for separation, and the company wants to settle with you immediately. They're terrified you're going to sue for harassment and emotional distress. What are they offering? 6 figures, he said, plus a public apology and commitment to implement new workplace harassment policies. They really don't want this going to court. I thought about it for maybe 30 seconds. Take the settlement, but I want the apology to be specific. I want them to acknowledge exactly what their employees did, and I want it posted publicly on their website and social media. No generic mistakes were made, corporate speak. Done. Ethan, you realize you've basically destroyed 4 people's careers in a single morning. No, I corrected him. They destroyed their own careers when they decided to treat another human being's emotions as entertainment. I just made sure there were consequences for their actions. That evening, I treated myself to dinner at the same restaurant where Rachel had tried to break me. I sat at a different table this time, one with a view of the whole room, and I thought about how much had changed in just a few days. 3 days ago, I was the weak, emotional husband who cried too easily and couldn't handle his wife's honesty. Today, I was a man who'd systematically dismantled a harassment conspiracy and held people accountable for their cruelty. My phone buzzed with one final message from Rachel. I lost everything because of you. My job, my relationship with Gregory, probably my career in this city. Are you happy now? I stared at the message for a long time before typing my response. You lost everything because of you, Rachel. I just made sure the bill came due. Maybe in your next relationship, you'll remember that the person you're with is a human being, not a source of entertainment. I never heard from her again. 6 months later, I'm living in a beautiful apartment downtown, dating an amazing woman named Claire, who thinks my sensitivity is a strength rather than a weakness, and I've never been happier. The settlement money didn't hurt either. Turns out, companies really don't like being exposed for harboring workplace harassment rings. Rachel, from what I hear through mutual friends, moved back to her hometown in Ohio. Vanessa Price left Austin entirely. Gregory Shaw's divorce was messy and public, and he ended up stepping down from his position at the company. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad about what happened to them. The answer is no. Not even a little bit. Because here's what I learned from that whole experience. There's a difference between being kind and being a doormat, between being empathetic and being a victim. Rachel thought she could manipulate me because I was sensitive and emotional. She thought those traits made me weak and predictable. What she didn't understand is that the same emotional intelligence that made me vulnerable to her manipulation also made me capable of understanding her motivations, predicting her actions, and systematically dismantling everything she thought she'd built. You see, truly sensitive people don't just feel their own emotions deeply, they understand everyone else's too. And when someone uses that gift against you, when they take your capacity for love and trust and weaponize it for their own amusement, well, that's when being sensitive becomes being strategic. Rachel wanted to see me cry in public. Mission accomplished. But she forgot the old saying about being careful what you wish for. Because sometimes when you get exactly what you wanted, you realize it's the last thing you needed, and sometimes the person you think you've destroyed is actually the one holding all the cards. They just needed the right moment to play them. Game over, Rachel. Thanks for playing.